Hello folks, it is Thursday the 24th of April. It's coming to 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm in Rome. Had this planned in advance before Easter, and I'm just away for a few days just to reset and unwind. Now, I watched Wrestlemania there on the weekend, and I watched it with very little expectation of being excited for it. Usually WrestleMania, because it's a big event, it's like the equivalent to the Super Bowl of the American football season, or the Super Bowl event equivalent to any other sporting franchise. But I thought, well, actually, in fact, most people would agree that most people weren't really excited for it this year. And I guess what really shit it on the entire event, because I'm going to touch on the lead up to it now, is the actual lead up itself, the storylines. The storylines usually begin from about November to January time, really, and it just was all over the place. I think probably the best place to begin is the world champ, the undisputed WWE Championship. And this year's WrestleMania was headlined by Cody Rhodes defending the championship against John Cena. And like on paper, it looks like a big match. You know, Cody is kind of over in this generation, and then John Cena has always been a big, massive player. He's had big WrestleMania matches against the best of them. But the presentation and the build-up to this year was just all over the place. It just all fell flat. And the one thing that frustrated me and a lot of other people is the fact that The Rock kind of shitted on it with his 50-50 contribution. I mean, do you remember when, after Cody Rhodes won the title last year at the 40th anniversary WrestleMania event, he beat Roman. Roman was on a 4-year tear, and it was a huge win for Cody Rhodes. And then the next night on Raw, because The Rock had a lot of contribution to last year's WrestleMania. In fact, actually, it ended with him actually being in a match, and he was incredible. He said to Cody Rhodes, your story with Roman Reigns is over. Your story with me begins. And he did the whole handshake, and then he wanted to hold the championship, and he was like, that just fits in right place, all the rest of it. And that kind of teased for something long term down the line between Cody and The Rock. Likely WrestleMania this year in the main event. So Cody Rhodes was throughout the rest of the year, he kind of not a big, not really the most exciting of title reigns, but he had a pretty okay-ish sort of run. He defended it with the likes of AJ Styles, Logan Paul, Kevin Owens got involved with the whole bloodline rivalry in the summer. So he had pretty much, you know, decent, okay title run. Not as impressive as Roman Reigns, but you may think that after that segment, eventually The Rock would actually, you know, begin to interject back into where he picked it up with Cody Rhodes, from likely the fall there to somewhere around January. And he didn't. Instead, he showed up at, what was it? It was called Bad Blood event back in October, was it? And then he sort of like did the 1, 2, 3 and then so cut sign. No one then knew what that meant, but anyway. So then he disappeared again. He showed up at the Netflix debut on Raw, the first Raw of this year, and instead of him actually being in some sort of character, he ended up actually just showed up as the corporate Rock, the corporate CEO, corporate Rock, and he just congratulated Cody for doing a good job, and then also giving Roman Reigns a big massive hug after his match against Solo Sikoa that night. And you're going like, what the fuck? Like, there was like about 8 or 9 months prior to a promising long-term story with Cody for WrestleMania, and he ends up doing that because a heel does not do that. So that pretty much kind of signed that he wasn't going to do this year's WrestleMania. So because he supposedly turned babyface, or he was just in his corporate act, who knows? It's confusing and it's frustrating for the audience. And then he showed up on NXT the night after, absolutely lit, absolutely just the profanity coming out of his mouth, and it just looked like he was just absolutely buzzed on tequila, I don't know. So that was that. Big massive thank you pop, a massive just meaningless rant on a random episode of NXT, which I don't watch NXT. Never did. And then he just showed up just before the Elimination Chamber saying that on a very weird episode of SmackDown, and he announced next year's WrestleMania, and I'll be very surprised if it can financially get to WrestleMania next year, because apparently it says the expectations of partnering with Netflix is not working too well, but that's another story. So he was on that SmackDown and says, you know, he wants to be Cody. He wants Cody to be his champion. Blah blah blah. He repeats himself. You have been a great champion. You've been a great champion. He said it about 4 or 5 times. I'm like, dude, you're rambling at this point. I want your soul, he says at the end. And then, okay, give me your final decision at Elimination Chamber. Think about it. So a week after that, to Elimination Chamber, Cody shows up after John Cena winning the Elimination Chamber, and that gives him the right to face Cody at the main event, because Jey Uso selected Gunther on the Raw side of the championship, on the Raw side, which was, the match was shite. It was not a main event. It was a night starter, and it sucked. The lead up sucked. That's a whole different story. And then Cody's just like, you know what, Rock, go fuck yourself. And then everyone was like shocked hearing that. And then John Cena gives him a big massive hug afterwards. And then John Cena looks at The Rock with a very devilish look, and he ends up kicking Cody in the nuts. And then him, The Rock, and this stupid random rapper who has no business in the WWE end up just smacking him about, and that was the end of The Rock. And we had weeks leading up to it a flop of a Cena heel turn. The Rock was no longer contributing to the story. Cody, same thing, just sort of had these big long-winded promos with Cena or without Cena for like the next 6 weeks. And leading up to WrestleMania, you may think The Rock at some capacity will get involved. Doesn't show up. And then John Cena, while this is his final year before retiring, with a very meaningless pushed heel turn which is flopped, wins the title at the expense of some skinny ass rapper interfering. What an absolute flop. And The Rock was completely not there. It just felt so it just felt washed. It felt there was no real buzz. Some of the other matches were okay to decent, but that's about it. And I'm really glad I haven't watched it all live, because I was able to skip through all the stupid meaningless crap of promos and the camera going to these corporate figures and at ringside, and celebrities showing up. I don't really care about that. I just want to see the wrestling event. And I skipped the big attendance announcements, which I don't really care about that either. So yeah, that was WrestleMania in Vegas this year. At this point, John Cena is a terrible heel. He's trying everything he can to make it work. It's not working at all. He's going to feud with Randy Orton for like the next month, because Randy Orton RKO'd him the night after. I just saw a clip on it on YouTube. Becky Lynch is back. That'll be interesting. The triple threat in night one was interesting. I wasn't expecting Paul Heyman to align himself with Seth Rollins. He double-crossed both Punk and Roman Reigns, so that was unexpected, which is good. I think it's going to work because Seth is over, and that's going to culminate him just like Roman Reigns, hopefully. Just like the way Roman was big, but then whenever he aligned himself with Paul Heyman, he became bigger. So I have hope that will work. Jey Uso is called Main Event Jey Uso. He wins the Royal Rumble, and then he chooses Gunther for his champion to choose. And that, he's meant to be the main event. He's called Main Event Jey Uso, right? The winner of the Royal Rumble gets to Main Event WrestleMania, and he is like the start of the night. That kind of shows how much WWE kind of believes in Jey Uso, I guess. Yeah, so that was that. So yeah, WrestleMania 41. the main event was kind of paced out for Cena because he's older. You know, it was at the right pace for him. It wasn't all out, so that kind of worked for him. But yeah, it's like one of those WrestleManias I wouldn't watch again. It's kind of like one of those events where there's many others that are very forgettable, but for the first time ever, there's a WrestleMania that I wouldn't watch again. And 41 there in Vegas seems to be that one. Here in ambulance. Yeah. So that's that. But yeah, that's my rant over about WWE. I just think it's yeah, I keep saying this over and over. Like whenever I start watching it, Shawn Michaels was still in it, Batista, Edge, all those guys are still in it full time, and Randy and Cena were, you know, were big, we're getting big, and here we are now. There's pretty good players, you know, right now still, but I think that it's a different audience, different management, and I think Triple H is one player out of many, many players, and I think it's a case of serving multiple masters at once, and you cannot serve two masters at once because that's biblical. But it kind of applies even to business. You know, it just doesn't work. Because there's sort of like this friction of, you know, this corporate figure wants to go this direction, the corporate figure wants to go that direction, and then they disagree or can't agree, and then they compromise, and then just the final result just feels less. Yeah, but look, that's kind of me over with my rant. I'm parched in the throat. But yeah, that's it, and yep, I'll see you again.